لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم علمنا الكتاب والحكمة ربي زدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك من فضلك يا عليم يا حكيم يا رب العالمين. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, as per my norm, I'm going to, of course, change up everything. You are here at a university, which means that I can hopefully safely assume that you are here because you wish to learn. Now, as the cards are being passed around and so on and so forth, please feel free if you are shy to write on the cards, but I would rather, because if we're talking about truth and we're talking about reality and we're talking about the seriousness of the situation and all aspects of said situation, you young people, myself included, living within the context of Western society as Muslims, taking in consideration all socio-political issues, that I'm now going to, because you are students, I'm going to ask you certain questions. Feel free, as per any normal lecture or class, so on and so forth, raise your hand and give the answer. Hopefully it's the correct one. But if not, that's okay, because that's the whole point of learning, isn't it? You don't know, so you're here to find out. Okay? So, let me just give you a little bit of background. Primary issues. Primary issues facing young people today. Identity crisis. Inferiority complex. Cultural clashes. A desire to, well, let's just put it this way, not understanding the difference between assimilation and integration. And then, last but most definitely not least, you have been falsely led to believe that most of you understand your deen. So you now entered into a very hazardous situation, handicapped. So let's find out how much you do know. أخبرني عن الإسلام. What is the definition of Islam according to Islam? Anybody? Somebody? Everybody. Don't be scared. Maybe just a little bit. No, you are a previous student. MashaAllah, from the days of way back, and you're sitting next to him, which means you're contaminated. Ladies, gentlemen, yes. Submission. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
To claim that there is no God but for Allah and Muhammad is his messenger.
La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Anybody else? These Muslims? I was going to ask, but I don't want to put anybody on the spot. All Muslims are right, like you're hijabi, so we're going to do and you bearded lions. Yeah! Lions! You are Muslim, which means Aslama Yuslimu Islaman, for what? Muslim. So, what is Islam? I told you. You're not just yeah, go ahead, yes. Don't be shy, don't be scared.
I mean, I might not be sure about the correct definition, but it comes from the root word salama, which is peace.
Peace. Peace. Submission. Kalima. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Anybody else besides this brother and his contaminated compadre? Ladies and gentlemen, all of these answers are wrong. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah. I'm assuming most of you are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. Yeah, that means you've been Muslim this long and you have no idea what the definition of Islam is. So let me ask you a question. If a non-Muslim were now to come up to you and ask you what is the definition of Islam, what would you say? You're a Muslim. I wish to know what Islam is. What are you going to tell them? Yeah. You wanted truth, right? That's right. You wanted truth? Here it is. Here's a cold dose of brutal reality. You have no idea what Islam is. So, mashallah, being that we are in the confines of the collegiate world, I am now going to tell you what the definition is. Why aren't you picking up like pens and pencils or like whatever it is that you people use today? Don't worry, I'm just kidding. No notes necessary. MashaAllah. The definition of Islam is because I qualified the statement, right? I said, what is the definition of Islam according to Islam? Right? Not according to an Arabic dictionary. For this, we look towards the hadith. It is known as al-Hadith, or also Hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam. In this hadith, just to give you a short backdrop, it takes place towards the end or the latter part of the Madani period. We understand this because multiple Sahaba, multiple riwayat of this hadith come to us, and one of the riwayat is Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, who became Muslim towards around the 7th year of Hijrah. Okay, so that means that now 20 out of 23 years of the Nabuwwat of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi hayatihi had already passed. 3 years remaining before Wafat al-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. What had happened is that you have to understand that in Medina, because we're talking about socio-political situations, right? Issues. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was dealing with the Yahud, he was dealing with assassins, he was dealing with the Quraysh, he was dealing with the Persians, he was dealing with the Byzantines, he was dealing with the Munafiqeen, he was dealing with all different types of strife and turmoil and enemies inside and out, and the Sahaba, being his companions, were extremely protective of him. So anybody who now came near or even within the proximity of Medina, they knew what was going on. So if there was a caravan that was passing, they knew who was in charge of the caravan, who was with the caravan, where the caravan was coming from, where it was going, and so on and so forth. Intelligence. So one day the Sahaba are sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a gathering, and in comes an individual in pristine white clothing, dark black hair. And he proceeds to now walk amongst the Sahaba, and he sits down in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with their knees touching, and puts his hands on his thighs and now asks him, "Akhbirni an al-Islam." Inform me, tell me, what is Islam? فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الإسلام. Is that you testify that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. That you establish salah, you pay zakat, you fast during the month of Ramadan, and you go for Hajj if you have the ability. What are those called? صدقتم. وقال جبريل عليه السلام صدقت. You have spoken the truth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you now know the definition of Islam. What is it? According to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Jibreel alayhi salam, the 5 pillars. The 5 pillars. But here's probably what you didn't catch. In this kalima of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, do you know what that entails? The entirety of our aqidah. The entirety of it. Everything that we believe comes from where? Does it not come from Quran and Sunnah? Quran, min Allah, Sunnah, min Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And he taught them what? The book, يعني القرآن والحكمة. What is hikmah? What is wisdom? What's the definition of wisdom? Oh, see? I thought we were just going to show up and you were just going to talk a whole bunch, and then we were going to talk about you afterwards and ask some questions and then eat. Going about our business. What is hikmah? What is wisdom? Yes, sir.
The ability to understand and to use knowledge.
Exactly. It is the practical application of knowledge. So now, when we have been taught al-kitab, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? It is the application of the Quran. Hence, al-hikmah. You with me? Now here comes the hard part. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. What does that mean?
Purification.
Purification. Of whom? Him. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. There's a dhamir. There's a pronoun. Anybody speak Arabic? Who's the fa'il?
The door?
Yes.
The door is Muhammad sallallahu
Alayhi salatu wasalam. And the maf'ul bihi?
The one being done upon is them, the people.
Aywa.
Or the action itself. Is it the action itself or is the act? The fa'al, maf'ul, and the maf'ul bihi, right?
Maf'ul bihi.
It's the people.
The people. Yani as-sahaba.
As-sahaba, yeah.
So he purified them. What does that mean? What, gave them a bath? Does that make sense? He taught them the book and wisdom. Then he bathed them. What is this yuzakki? To purify them. It means this. You and I have this very difficult endeavor that we have embarked upon, and that is to try to bridle, to try to harness our nafs, our ego, our desires, so on and so forth. It is extremely difficult, and it requires a lot of discipline, humility, knowledge, hikmah. So before you can talk about any issues, the question is that the number one issue facing us, if if we are to tell the truth and to talk about reality, the number one issue facing us is twofold. Number one, it is our own ignorance. And number two, arrogance. Ignorance and arrogance. That's the reason we talk about it every time in every rak'ah of salah. Do you know that? Ignorance and arrogance. No? اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. مغضوب عليهم. Who are they? Yahud. What was their issue? Was it ignorance? No. It was arrogance. Pride. ولا الضالين. Those whom are misguided. And what's their issue? Is it arrogance? No. They're actually very humble people when you talk about monks and so on, right? And so Allah Ta'ala even alludes to that in the Quran as well. What was their issue? Ignorance. And there you go. Every time you're reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, what are the two issues? Ignorance and arrogance. Aslan, these are our two major issues before you can now discuss any other issue. Before you can discuss any other issue. Now, mashallah, you guys made it through high school and now you are in a university. And you are moving on with your lives, and you also have a certain degree of autonomy in your lives. Freedom. You are making decisions for yourselves. You are now adults. Right? Uh-oh. Some are so sure. Are you adults? I don't know. Just a minute ago I thought I was Muslim and I didn't even know what Islam is. I'm just not sure about anything anymore. The problem is that as you are now acquiring your education and you are moving on with your life and you are now facing these social issues, are you equipped to deal with them? To answer these questions that are being posed to you by whether it's the media or a professor in a classroom, by your family members, your friends, classmates? What is when you're dealing with these issues, without mentioning any specific one, I will leave that to you. When dealing with these issues, when somebody asks, what is your opinion about such and such? What is your view on such and such? How do you answer them? Is it just your own personal opinion? Or is it based on Islam? Do you know? And as I teach my students now, I present them with situations because I believe in creating an environment in which now that you can experience the truth as opposed to it being presented to you as a theory. I turn them into evidence. So now, within your cognitive framework, which is, what is your cognitive framework? Yes, Marva?
The way you're programmed to think.
The way that you think. She's programmed.
No.
It's the way that you think. It's the way that you process information. Now, there are variables within your cognitive framework that now have influenced the way that you think. So you have your upbringing, your lineage, your environment, society, gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, your physical appearance, education, life experience, race, physical ability, culture, religion. All of these factors, these variables, have now had an influence on you and the way that you think and process information. But who's in control then? Do you realize the influence that each one of those variables, or all of those variables, or sometimes a mixture of those variables is having upon your thought processes? And if you are not conscious of it, then are you unconscious? Are you unconsciously thinking? Did you know that was possible? And if you are unconsciously thinking and developing these opinions, then what happens if somebody can now come along and now dictate, control any one or more of those variables to induce certain thought, to create opinions that you will think are now your own, that they came from you, and you'll feel very strongly about them. But aslan, the root, comes from where? So these are the things that I want you to keep in mind as we're, move on to discussing like whatever issues happen to be facing you as young people or as Muslims within the context of the society and the culture and the extremely politically charged society and culture in which we are living in today. Because unlike most groups, as soon as you are identified as a Muslim, no matter what you say or what you do, it's automatically assumed that now you are representing Islam. It's extremely rare that that happens with anybody else. But for us currently, if you have an hijab and you say something, and whether it's in front of a camera or to your friend, like, well, this Muslim said such and such. Muslims believe this. This Muslim has the opinion of that. So now you have the added weight of not just surviving within this context, but now you are the responsibility has been thrust upon your shoulders that you now must bear the weight of the entire ummah on your shoulders. So when you speak, you are now representing Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which means if you say the wrong thing, you are now misrepresenting Allah, His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Islam. Whether you like it or not, whether it's fair or not, that's the reality. So, I know it's like a whole lot all at once, isn't it? You okay? Nobody collapsed, that's always good. The question is how do you now take control of your own thoughts? How do you learn? And before you can do any of that, how do you overcome your own nafs? Do you even recognize your nafs when it flares up? Do you know what it is when it happens? Are you aware of it? Do you know when you're being arrogant? Do you know when you're being rude, disrespectful, a jackalope? Do you know when you're being unjustly angry or spiteful? Do you know when you have certain emotions such as anxiety or depression, which are really just byproducts of your own nafs? And now that we've, mashallah, covered this myriad of issues that exist that you didn't know they existed, I will ask you this. Who are you? First of all, you didn't know what the definition of Islam was. And then next you found out that your thoughts are more than likely, probably not your own. And then on top of that, can you identify your nafs? And I didn't even talk about plethora yet in your ruh. Who are you? Do you know? Who are you? And as you're going through your life and you're acquiring your education, are you just going to basically be a byproduct of the society? Or are you going to be able to stand as an individual who is consciously aware of your strengths, your weaknesses, your goals and aspirations? An individual with a proper perspective that now spans outside the realms of this life and this world. So, for instance, brother with the hat in the back. Do you know what primordial existence is?
No.
Why not? You were there. Have you ever heard the ayah, "Alastu bi rabbikum"? قال الله سبحانه وتعالى. Allah said, "Alastu bi rabbikum." Am I not your Rabb? قالوا. They said. Who said? We said. All of us. Every living man, woman, and child, regardless of their current, beliefs or what have you, regardless of race and ethnicity and cultural background, regardless of who your mommy and your daddy are, every human being who has ever lived, who is living, or ever will live, each and every soul was present. قالوا بلى, invariably. شهدنا, we have borne witness that you are our master. That's Rabb, not Lord. How many of you walk around talking about Lord? Lord. How many of you in the past 5 years, outside of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, all praise be to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Only time you ever use the word Lord is when you're translating ayat of Quran. What does the word Lord actually mean? Did you know? Master. Alastu bi rabbikum. Allah asked, am I not your master? And we all said invariably. And we bear witness to this fact. أن يقولوا على يوم القيامة إنا كنا عن هذا غافلين. Unless that you should be able to say on the day of judgment that we were oblivious to this. And last but not least, now that you've, mashallah, you don't know who you are, and just now finding out about your primordial existence. Last but not least, what is worship? إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Not letting you answer more. What does it mean? Ibadah. Now everybody's scared to answer. Nobody? Yes?
I would say it's the purest and highest form of love.
MashaAllah. It's very esoteric. Oh, bless you. Yes. That's okay. It happens to me too. Khulika inside of life, and we've all been created weak. MashaAllah, it happens. What is ibadah? You say like Iyaka na'budu, or you do we do ibadah? Yes.
It is an acceptance of one's weakness in front of Allah.
Sitting with a group of philosophers. Also special. It's like, when I came in here, I knew what Islam was. Now, I don't even know what ibadah is. What is the ibadah? How do you, okay, this to make it a little easier. Well, how do we translate the word ibadah? Okay, now we're going somewhere. Worship. How do you do it? Yes. Yes.
Well, Allah is our master, and we are his slaves,
Okay.
and we do what we serve our master.
MashaAllah. Excellent. Ahsant ya akhi. We serve our master. To put it in one word, obey. What is ibadah? To obey. Obey whom? Our master. So then, now we're back full circle. What does our master want? يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. That's what our master wants. Learn, apply it. In order to be able to do that, yuzakki, you must go through this process of purification. Are we clear as mud? Everybody has their thinking faces on. It's so nice, mashallah. Gosh, what's he done to us? I'm so sure about so many things. And like now I'm just sitting here with this dazed look on my face. I don't even know how to answer ibadah anymore. But think about it this way. You're going to have a lot of fun at parties. You can go to your family members and your relatives, mashallah, and friends, and like ask them like questions like, Assalamu alaikum. What's the definition of Islam according to Islam? Peace. Submission. Think about it. Explain it to you. Right? MashaAllah, MashaAllah. What is the meaning of the word ibadah? Cookie cutter answers. Worship. Oh, worship. What does worship mean? Right? So you get to have some fun at parties now, mashallah. You get to play genius. Wow, mashallah. She's so pious. He's so pious. Look at him. I never knew that. Did you know that? Wow. So you get to like flex your spiritual muscle now, in gatherings. Now, what issues do you want to talk about? Everybody's scared like, there's issues? What issues? The issues outside these doors and walls. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about gender issues?
Gender issues. Which, do you have like a specific favorite?
I guess among the community, we're in America, Americans do something relaxed, cross-genders. So how do we, as you say, integrate without overstepping our boundaries as Muslims and what's appropriate?
Between male and female.
Yes.
Oh. Most of the issues as humans that we face are going to be rooted in male and female issues. You might say, well, of course, seeing how humans are male and female, right? But I'm more specifically talking about the individual, the psyche, the general psyche of a male and the general psyche of a female, okay? And I mean general. So when I start giving, like, clarifying, like, don't anybody, like, I'm not like that. I'm not talking about you. I'm speaking generally. Women generally are, I'm not scared. Women generally are emotional. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm not afraid. Yeah. Just make sure there's a clear path for my vehicle after. And the gentlemen tend to be logical.
What?
Whoa! Now, to balance out the equation, both of these qualities exist on both sides. So it's not to say that women are illogical or to say that gentlemen lack emotion or sensitivity. It's just saying that the predominant one among each gender happens to be what it is. Hence, wait till you get married. You're going to have so many wonderful fights that will become examples of exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Because he's going to be like, I don't understand why she's so angry. I tried to explain it to her. And meanwhile, she'll be saying to you, you don't understand how I feel. She's like, this is just how I feel. Like, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It's like, it doesn't change the fact that this is how I feel. Right? And she will be right. And she will be right. Because that is how she feels. And just because it may appear to be illogical to you, it doesn't negate the fact that that is how she feels. The same way that because he is saying, why is she crying? I just said, can you put a little less salt in the food? I just want a little less salt. It's just salt. It's nothing to cry over. But because I'm not your mother, that's what it is. Like, I don't cook like your mother. Like, this is... It's salt. I didn't say anything about my mother. I said something about salt. Right? It doesn't mean that he is insensitive, that he is like simple-minded, right? It just means now that, again, that you have, ladies, emotion is dominant. It is not a bad thing, but look how you respond. using you guys as proof against yourselves. Look how you responded. Look how you responded. Like, oh my gosh, did he just say that they were emotional? Somebody's gonna have to like, all right, you. Designated bodyguards for the Sheikh. Nobody will ever come speak here again if we can't get him out of here safely. All right? Here's the catch. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the love that he has for his ibad, who does he compare his love to? The love that a father has for his child? No. The who? The mother. Why? Because she's emotional. The level of love that a mother feels for a child, it cannot be matched by man. It is not to say that a man or father does not love his children. It means that now that there is an emotional attachment that exists, or should exist, generally does exist, between a mother and her children, or child, that is special. It is so special that she will get up in the middle of the night and she will lose sleep and she will stay and worry about every little moan and cry of the baby, and is he comfortable, is she comfortable, did you get enough food, and so on and so forth, all the little details, right? And meanwhile the husband is in bed thinking, I wish the baby, can she get the baby to be quiet because I have to go to work in the morning, and as if she didn't. Right? Does it mean he doesn't love the child? No. Again, generic example. But why did you take it to be a negative thing to say that women are emotional? What's wrong with that? Yes?
Because our society gives a lot more preference to abstract thinking and rationality rather than emotions.
So, do women need to degrade themselves now and shed their emotionality for the sake of society? And if you do have this negative impression of it, and you're saying that society has now injected that negative impression into their psyche, then guess what? You have now just displayed the truth of my statement that your cognitive framework is infected. That now those variables you are seeing now practically, real life example right here, right now, of how your cognitive framework has been manipulated and you were not aware. Yes, ma'am?
But what's the difference between balancing who you naturally are, with emotionality, with the need to be logical? And so what's the difference between that and what you're saying?
With the need to be logical, that's the key. Because like you said, let's use equilibrium as opposed to balance. Okay? What does Islam do? Islam comes in, and because you cannot negate those variables, right? Can you change the fact of who your parents were, or where you grew up, or the color of your skin, or your cultural heritage, or can you change that? No. Can you change the impact that it has on your life? Or that it's going to have an impact? No. So it's not about negating those variables, it's just a matter of putting them in their proper place. Equilibrium. So what does Allah say about different colors, different complexions? Al-wan, which is the plural of lawn, color. What's the point of it? That's it. So that you know one another. Now, where does racism come into that? So now what happens is when the color or the complexion of your skin goes out of balance in your mind, now whether that's due to society or due to your upbringing or whatever, that means it's now out of its equilibrium. So what does Islam do? Puts it back. Your culture or your family, qaba'il, your nation, right? Your tribes. So what? Ta'aruf. So that you know one another. What happened with Iblis? Oh, by the way, I need to check first. Was Iblis an angel or a jinn? Okay, I just had to check. I just had to check. Be surprised these days. I've gone places now and it says clearly kana min al jinn, right? Surah al-Kahf. But, mashallah, you hear very ajib things these days. So, now, what was the issue with, what did he say about Adam alayhi salam? Huh? What was his argument?
Created him from clay, he created me from fire.
Created him from clay. Created me from fire. He was a racist. Yeah. What was Iblis' issue? He was a racist. Based on what? His arrogance. He was a racist. Based on his own what? Arrogance. What happens when it goes out of balance? But here's the catch. What was he before that? He was abid. He was a worshiper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was alim. And he was what you would call a scholar. So he had the knowledge. And also he was arif. Meaning that now as far as spirituality is concerned, he had acquired a very high degree of spirituality, proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to such an extent that when the amr came from Allah in telling the angels to prostrate before Adam, which was not a prostration of worship, but rather of respect, reverence. They were obeying the order of Allah. Who was included with them? Iblis. That was his status. But what happened to him? Yeah. So it just goes to show that no matter how pious you think you might be, as soon as you think you're pious, you're not. As soon as you think you're pious, you are not. So all the Puritan thought and self-righteousness and so on and so forth, yeah, that's just your nafs. It is your arrogance, pride. Humility should be your goal. Shedding your ignorance should be your goal. Finding out who you are should be your goal. The representation, the proper representation of yourself, your family, your deen, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and ultimately your creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, should be your goal. Because if I were to ask any of you, mashallah, I'm sure that all of you could answer this correctly, that why now were we created? What is our purpose in life? Anybody? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we've already discussed, what does worship mean? Obey. How many of us woke up this morning thinking, how am I going to obey today? What? Brother, like, what are you asking? Because I was happy if I just get up and made fudge salad on time. Yeah. Is there a special gate in Jannah for a doctor? Contrary to popular opinion. Is there a special gate in Jannah for an IT professional, architect, engineer, lawyer? No? My dear respected brothers and sisters, you must get past these very superficial understandings, and I will be very blunt with you, deceptions that you have now told yourself. You must become people of substance. And in order to be able to do that, you have to understand your value. And in order to be able to do that, you must do the aforementioned. That is what gives you value. That is what gives you substance. That's what makes you something more than just a cog, or more than just like a robot. So all these other issues, all these extraneous issues, oh, like what do we have to say about the LBGTQRSTUV? What do we have to say about this thing and that thing and immigration and this thing and that other thing and whatever the hot topic may happen to be? Priorities. If you don't know who you are, what in the world, like seriously, like what in the world do you care about any of that? Like you've got other more pressing matters in front of you. Or rather inside you. Seems scary, doesn't it? So, now do you have any questions? Speechless? Yes, sir. Old courageous man in the front row.
So, I mean, from my experience and what I know, there's no contentment in this world, in this dunya. But then also, because the journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also limitless, and you said that we always have to feel like as soon as you see yourself as pious, then you're not pious, that arrogance thing. So where do we find contentment in this world?
Contentment is one, it is created. It is also makhluk. Same as happiness and everything else. Love. Contentment, we have to divorce two things first. One is to be content with what you're given as far as life. You strive, right? According to your priorities, you never let your priorities get out of whack, all right? So as long as you understand your priorities and you struggle and strive and acquire your education and move on into your whatever given field you happen to choose, and mashallah, and apply yourself, and you get married and you have children. But the contentment comes in is that there are so many things that are outside of your control. And no matter what happens, right, if you don't get your way, and you never realize your goals and aspirations, if it just doesn't happen, if it just wasn't written for you, you have to be okay with that. If your life suddenly takes a left turn, be okay with that. It happens. You don't get to plot and plan out your whole life and the road that you're going to go down and how long it's going to take and where the destination may lie. So if you end up going in another direction, just make sure that, as far as the worldly matters are concerned, just make sure that you stay content. But now the more important issue is to never become content with your Islam in matters of deen. Because what is taqwa? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The noblest, the best amongst you are those with the most taqwa. So, what is taqwa? This is where somebody says, fear of the law. Yes, sir. Dang, I just gave my answer. Anybody want to go for God consciousness? Going once, going twice. Nobody for God consciousness? What is taqwa? Yes, sir.
Placing a barrier between, I don't know how to put it, but from the wrong.
Okay. See? Yes, sir.
Like, kind of like God consciousness, but basically living as if like Allah is real to you, like He's in front of you, like Jannah is real and like hell is real, like you really see it, like
Okay.
you're aware of it.
I like this one particular word that you're using, real. Okay? Taqwa is this. It is being conscious of your aqidah. Yani, it is being conscious of reality. Because what is aqidah? It is now the explanation of reality. Okay? Taqwa means to be conscious of reality. Who establishes reality? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does it mean when we say إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا? That your perception doesn't benefit, it doesn't help reality at all. The truth. Your perception doesn't change reality, does it? Just because you think one way or you feel very strongly about something or you have an opinion, that would mean that reality was completely subjective, which is a whole other topic of discussion that we're not going to go into. Subjectivism and relativism and so on and so forth. Okay? That's a whole other, mashallah, and you should go into it because it is becoming the predominant thought today. Whether people are conscious of it or not is a whole other issue. All right? But reality, truth, is objective, meaning that the goalposts do not change. The rules of the, forgive me for using the term, game, do not change and have not changed. From Adam alayhi salam all the way until the day of judgment. Being conscious of that, exactly like you said, to where that now this becomes your reality. Okay? That's taqwa. Because then you act accordingly, isn't it? How many of you came in here trying to walk on the ceiling? No one? Why? Because you understand a certain reality. Gravity. I can't walk on the ceiling. Not right now, anyway. All right? So the ideal here is that you have to understand that contentment is something that resides is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives to whomever He wills. So be content with your dunya, not with your deen. How are depression and anxiety byproducts of your nafs? It is byproducts of your nafs. Why? Because shaitan is now going to... Have you guys ever heard this before? الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. Is that familiar? MashaAllah, mashallah. Those who now whisper into the chests of mankind. From among who? Min al-jinnati wan-nas. From among the jinn and also from among mankind. Your chest is where the sadr or the core of you, now this is where your nafs resides. Okay, now when you're talking about nafs, what shaitan tries to do is incite your nafs. He wants you to swing into extremes, whether that is, whether it's arrogance and, which may manifest itself as, culturalism or racism or whatever the case may be, right? And also within emotions as well, to get you to become hopeless. to get you to start worrying about things and to forget the bigger picture. When you now understand what nafs is and you now have control over your nafs, and again, back to taqwa, you now are living in reality as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established it, not according to the reality that is in your mind. Then you do not have to worry about these extreme forms like depression. No. Anxiety, to a lesser degree. There's a certain degree of anxiety that sometimes just comes because of a situation, like before you take a test, right? You don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, there's a certain degree of anxiety, but that's normal. But we're talking about anxiety where you can't even function as a normal human being. You just kind of like break down, right? Hence anxiety attacks, right? Depression. Depression doesn't mean that you are sad or that you're going through like something natural like bereavement. You lost a family member or a loved one. So bereavement is normal. It is natural. You feel sad. Even when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Ibrahim, his son, passed away, the Sahaba saw him crying. They were like, "Ya Rasulullah, even you? You were crying?" He said, "I'm a human being, just like you." Okay? So we're talking about going into extremes now where it affects your ability to be able to function as a normal Muslim human being. What advice would you give to someone who is doubting their faith? Ask me questions. In all of my classes, whenever I'm dealing with young or old on a regular basis, male or female, anybody, if you have doubts, get clarification. Why are you like wandering around with these lingering like doubts and questions? Get answers. That's the beauty of Islam, is there are answers. I converted into Islam. I became a Muslim. And I have spent the past 20 years now learning Islam. I can honestly say that there is yet, and I'm extremely inquisitive, there is yet to be an answer that I have not been able to find in Islam. No question has gone unanswered. The issue is generally with us. Because again, what's the barrier? Arrogance. If you can get past your nafs, then you can get to the answer. If you really want the answer and you're humble about it, Allah will give it to you. Because ultimately, hidayah comes from where? Allah. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. This is what you're asking for. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. What is the siratal mustaqim? Fine. Translation, straight path. But
Islam.
Islam. So 5 pillars. Now we know Islam doesn't just mean peace and submission. Let's go to Yasin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ألم يعد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. Did I not take a covenant from you? Did I not take a covenant from you, O children of Adam, that you would not worship Shaitan? Worship means what? Obey. Shaitan. That he is to you a manifest enemy. But that you would worship me. And what is worship? Obey me. This is the Sirat al-Mustaqim. So now, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim is actually saying what? Give us divine guidance to do what? Obey. And to obey you need knowledge. Hence the importance of understanding what you are saying. Okay. How can we use dua to strengthen our faith? Just told you. How can we strengthen our relationship with our families, specifically parents and in-laws? Just told you, dua. Look, understand something, guys. People are who they are, you know? And you cannot control anybody else. You can only, and as you just found out, you don't even know who you are and how to control yourself now, right? So now you've got a primary mission. Find out who you are and figure out how to control yourself and not be arrogant, learn your deen and obey, and figure out, as the brother said, some way to be content. You can't change other people. Stop trying. They are who they are. They make their own decisions. They live their own lives. That is your spouse, children, parents, family members, classmates, society. You cannot force them to change. The only thing that you can do practically is, number one, become an example. And number two, give encouragement. Practically, three things you should always be trying to do dealing with family members, even in-laws. Number one, communicate. You have got to have the avenues of communication open. And number two, you must be able to compromise. To reach an understanding with each other, right? It's a give and take, push and pull. And last, forgive. Stop holding all these like petty grudges and getting upset over every little thing or even big thing. Forgive one another. If you can do these three things, these three fundamental things in a given relationship, mashallah, and if you're on the other side of it, so if you're the one that everybody's upset with, and somebody actually has the courage to come to you to try to open up those avenues of communication and try to compromise and forgive, again, don't be petty. Respond in kind. Talk it out. Compromise with one another. Understand one another. And forgive one another. Oh boy, this is long. I feel that the personality I've developed has become a hindrance in my relationships with friends and family. In short, I want to change for the better, but don't know where to start. How do I stop being so outgoing and learn to keep to myself more? Don't put the cart in front of the horse. You'd be surprised if you've listened during the course of my droning on. You will be so shocked and surprised how many issues just completely dissipate in your lives. Evaporate, gone. So I usually give the example. When you have, say you have a tree. This tree has an infection, sick, thus producing bitter fruits. Do you try now to cure, heal, fix each one of those bitter fruits? Or do you try to deal with the root problem? You deal with the root problem. Because by dealing with the root problem, you cure the whole tree. You're dealing with all the fruits, all those little bitter fruits at one time. But now real quick to end with this, because in all fairness to the sister who asked a question about males and females, didn't. It is this. Because you now realize that you guys there's so much about yourselves that you don't know this. Until you do, you should be very careful in trusting yourself. Especially around the most dangerous the most dangerous thing. Women. Took that negative, didn't you? I saw some of the looks on your face. Did he just say dangerous? النساء حبائل الشيطان. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Women are the ropes, the snares, the traps of shaitan. Are you offended? You feel offended? Because I want to end with an example, right? You feel offended? Be honest. Are you offended? You are, aren't you? Right? See? Okay. So, let me show you how you're affected. Are you ready? Do you believe that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would ever say anything that was in any stretch of the imagination derogatory about women? Like to hurt women or to make women, feel bad about being a woman? Do you think that he would do that? Do you think that he's a misogynist? Ayadha billah? A chauvinist? A'udhu billah. No, right? Why did you think that? Why were you offended? Huh? Yeah. And then men, because you're not free. Why did y'all look like, they're dangerous? Them over there, look at them, looking all dangerous. And there's more of them out there. They're everywhere. None of us are safe. We have to stick together and protect one another. Right? You thought the same thing. What does it mean? It means this. Shaitan, women have something that men do not have. And that is a lure. You have an allure to you. Hence, you spend how many of you brothers, please give me a show of hands, how many brothers spend time on your makeup? How many of you brothers now remember what the other brothers wore yesterday? How many of you got together and were thinking like, I can't believe he wore that here? Like those colors really do not match. Right? How many men, I know this is a delicate question these days, but I'll ask it anyway. How many of you put on lipstick before you came? Mascara? Eyeshadow? Nobody? Good. On the flip side of the coin. Oh boy. How many of you? Oh, yes. Why? Because you want to be beautiful. You have vanity. And that's part of being a woman. Right? Even Rasulullah ﷺ said, please remember this, gentlemen, that you are not even allowed, if you've been away on a trip, you are not allowed to go home until now you let your wife know that you're back. Why? So she has an opportunity to beautify herself before you come home. Respect her. Don't just be showing up. Right? See, I'm with you. Understand. Just can't be like showing up. Like, show up if you want to. You don't have to stand outside for 10 minutes. I ain't gonna open that door until I at least have a chance to fix my hair. Right? That's who you are. That's how Allah made you. And there's nothing wrong or derogatory about it. The issue is that Shaitan wants to try to use you to destroy them. It's not you, it's Shaitan. Okay? Haba'il is a rope, because that's the whole argument, gun control, right? So, like, guess what a gun is without a human being or something? It's a paperweight. What's a rope? It's a rope. You use it on ships. I mean? Like sometimes you tie up cargo. You could build a tree swing with rope. Right? When is it a bad thing? When it's being used by shaitan. So if you are on guard and you are trying to make sure that you are not being manipulated and used by shaitan, then you are now being proactive. I refuse to be used by shaitan. And gentlemen, if you are now aware that shaitan likes using these precious creatures over here, then you should be on guard. And here's the catch, because you know like I know. Oh yeah, I see in your beady eyes. It's really not the sisters so much that's dangerous. It's the other ones. Yeah, the others. The ones who are out there that have less modesty, don't really care about you. Hence, they get you all lusty. I said it. So control yourself. Your interaction should be strictly professional, and you must be on guard because shaitan is going to try to take professional and turn it into perverted. Does that answer your question? Not the way you were thinking though, huh?
No, actually,
Oh, mashallah. You're kind of warm and fuzzy right now. Okay. Jazakumullah khairan jazak. MashaAllah, it has been my honor and pleasure to be able to spend my evening with you. I do humbly request your forgiveness for my tardiness and making you wait. It was not intended by any stretch of the imagination, and I may have, I'm not admitting anything, but it is possible that I may have broken a speed limit or two on the way here, because I felt so bad. And I did not admit to anything. The same possibility existed that okay? But it's been a pleasure. And mashallah, I can tell from your faces throughout that you were very thoughtful, insightful, and you were considering and pondering upon what I was saying, which is exactly what we need. Because it's first and foremost a reminder for myself, and hopefully, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it will be beneficial not just for myself, but for you as well. Jazakumullahu khairan jazak. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi